this episode of the Yahowah blog. I'm your host, Craig Wynn. Over the past 23 years since I was first introduced to Yahowah, I've done a number of things, many of them unheralded, particularly as it relates to the insights that I've been able to share regarding who God is, what his name is, what he is offering, and what he expects from us in return. And the first of these, the most important of these, was the proper pronunciation of Yahweh's name. You will hear all sorts of excuses for not using it, such as God doesn't care what we call him. Well, I'm here to tell you that in his testimony and his words, he does care what we call him. And he is deeply offended when we call him any other name but his name, the name that he introduced to us. There's also this myth that we all worship the same God, so why does it matter? Well, that is about as dumb gets, because the real God does not want to be worshipped. As a matter of fact, a God that would create an inferior being to worship him would be sadistic, would be emotionally compromised, would be a narcissist, wouldn't be worth knowing. That'd be like you deciding you want to create your own special breed of ants and put them in a little ant farm and have them get up every day and croak out. I don't know what ants croak or they cricket or whatever ants do when they try to communicate, but have them say, "You are the best. You are the greatest. Oh, I worship you. Oh, I praise you. Oh, great ant farm creator." First time might be funny. It'd be like opening the locker in the film Men in Black to have the great keeper of the watch shout out the praises. The first time you hear it, it might bring a chuckle. But if that were your intent and you had to endure it over thousands of years, well, you'd either be an utter nincompoop to have conceived it, or it would drive you insane. But God doesn't want to be worshipped. God wants us to know him. And to know him, one of the prerequisites is to know his name. And he only has one of them. His name is Yahowah. Now, when I began this mission, which was on Teruah in 2001, shortly after the Islamic suicide bombings of the World Trade Center and the U.S. Pentagon, the plane crashing in Pennsylvania, a number of things changed rather dramatically in my life. And the first was this mission to share who God is, what he's offering, and what he's asking in return. So this program I'm going to dedicate to what is God's name? Because I can assure you, if you do not know God's name, you do not know him. And if you do not know him, he does not know you. Now, another myth regarding his name is that no one knows how to pronounce it. So out of respect for him, we ought to ignore it. It's amazing what people will fall for under the name of religion. It isn't respectful to erase someone's name, which is what has been done in Judaism and in Islam, Christianity, although in two of those religions, rather than simply erase Yahweh's name, they changed it. Yahweh's name is quite easy to pronounce. He even told us how to pronounce it when he introduced himself to Moshe. That revelation is in a book called the Torah. Now, all letters, two of which are repeated, so letters and all vowels, and they're all readily pronounced in the many thousands of other Hebrew words that form his testimony. And there's nothing unique about Yahweh's name to make it difficult for us. Now then there's the religious notions that Hashem or Adonai are acceptable, but They're not. The last guy wants to be called Father. In fact, he uses the Lord to describe the adversary because it is Satan who wants to lord over and possess humankind, controlling humankind. The devil wants to be our Father. Us bowing down to him, us praying to him. He most certainly doesn't want to lord over us. He wants to earn our respect, to earn our trust, and then for us to grasp his hand as we walk together. So I'm going to turn to the place in the Torah. Torah, by the way, does not mean law. It's an anti-religious book rather than a religious book. It does not belong to me. It was revealed to the children of Israel by Yahowah through Moshe. Moshe means go out, but it is Yahweh's Torah. Torah means source of teaching and guidance, instruction and direction. It does not mean law. As a matter of fact, there is no Hebrew word for obey, to drive that point home. When you read obey in some crazy English translation of the Torah or in the prophets, it's actually Shama. So listen, I would encourage you to today talk about how we have come to the proper pronunciation of God's name, and that God has but one name for all eternity. The story begins, of course, in the Torah, and it reads Moshe. Moshe is a name that is based upon the verb mashal. It means to draw out. And the reason it means power is that was Moshe's mission. He was called by Yahweh, asked by Yahweh to draw Israel out of the realm of Mitzrayim, religious, political oppression, and to the freedom promised land. Moshe was shepherding, leading, protecting, guiding, and nurturing the flock. This is an exceedingly important concept. Yahweh likes working through shepherds. And the reason for that is twofold. The animal that most resembles the kind of relationship he would like to develop with us, other than humans, but to project that so we have visual reference to some of the Yahweh enjoy are sheep. Sheep are very bright. They have the capability of advanced or executive thinking. They know their name. They respond to them. Rely upon their shepherd. They're very unique that they like to be follow, and the lead ram will protect them. And so sheep who lie down in green pastures, sheep who follow their shepherd, sheep who answer to their name. It's a metaphor of word for how Yahweh would like covenant family to interact with him. And the best preparation for being in the role that Moshe was in, which was to lead the wayward and currently enslaved children of Israel to the promised land, was the training of Israel. You learn to lead the flock. You learn to anticipate their needs. You protect them from all harm. It's a nurturing role. It's a caring role. It's a form of leadership that is earned by living with your flock. And that's what Yahweh chose. He chose Moshe. So Moshe was shepherding, leading, protecting, guiding, and nurturing the flock, sheep. Of his father-in-law, Yithro. Yithro means the remnant from Yathar, name. Midian priest. Midian is one who ministers, if you will, to those who are contentious. He led his sheep to the end of the desert wilderness. and came to the mountain of Almighty God. Now, this is relevant for a number of reasons. Relevant. God very seldom, if ever, says anything that isn't laden with important insights. So this has Moshe being presented as a shepherd, leading his sheep, and he led them to what was the outermost part of the midbar. Midbar. It's translated here, desert wilderness. What midbar, or Hoth in this case, the two words, mid, which is an interrogative in Hebrew, to ponder the implications, and the bar. The bar is the Hebrew word for word. So the wilderness is a place to ponder the implications of the word. Exceedingly relevant here because he came to Torah, the mountain of Almighty God. The Torah was presented. It is on Torah that Yahweh introduced himself to Moshe. It is to Torah that the children of Yisrael would return after they were free from Mitzrayim, Egypt. Torah is one of the two most important places on earth, rather than Mount Moriah, which is where the Temple Mount is in Jerusalem. The spiritual messenger, this is a malach. This is a heavenly envoy or representative. It's corrupted to a transliteration of a Greek word. The Greek translation of malach is angelos, and angelos means messenger in Greek. But Yahweh didn't speak in the Greek language. And he doesn't want his words, if you're going to transliterate them, which is to replicate the sound in another language, change to Greek. So it is not an angel, a transliteration of the translation of Malach. Plus the fact angel is perceived as these cute little girls with wings that sit on one's shoulders and tell you what you're trying to do. That isn't their role at all. The Hebrew word does mean messenger. It is at times applied to individual men, but the term is almost universally used to represent a spiritual influence. The reason that in this case Yahweh's voice is being projected through and is projected through a malach is that Yahweh is a seven-dimensional. We live in 3D land. There's height, depth, there's weight. Only three dimensions in the world that we can intimately perceive and interact in. The fourth dimension is time, of which we are stuck in the ordinary flow. Yahweh is not. That would be the fourth dimension. But there is a fifth and sixth dimension to our universe. I would like to refer to what science does not understand as dark matter and dark energy, representing 96% of the known universe, as dimensions. One being repulsive, one being attractive, one being choice, therefore, and the other relationship. Well, for Yahweh to create a six-dimensional universe, he must be seven-dimensional. And as a seven-dimensional being, he can't enter the realm of six dimensions. He can't enter the realm of five, and most certainly can't enter the realm of three. It'd be like having Disney decide that he wants to enter the flatland of the cell that he created for Mickey and Minnie Mouse. He can interact with his creation using implements, paintbrushes, and pencils. He can himself reduce himself to two dimensions, just as Yahweh can't reduce himself to three dimensions. Therefore, for Yahweh to interact with us in 3D realms, he must either project his voice and his presence through a spiritual implement, a malach, whose job it is to follow his instructions, his direction. Or he can project his nasama and nefesh, his soul, his conscience and consciousness, and place it in any object of his choosing. So those are the two ways that Yahweh has to interact with us in the protected realm. And in this case, he did so through a malach, a spiritual. So the spiritual messenger of Yahweh appeared to him by means of a flaming fire from the midst of the rocky crag. Now, you have heard this translated, and it's a translation, but you've heard this so many times. That is not a bush. It is a shimmering, rocky cliff known as a crag. The reason that Yahweh appeared in this case as flame is because God nature is more equivalent to light and light energy than anything that we are able to understand. And so Yahweh will present himself both in words and visually to us in the form of radiant energy, fire, and light, because it is the closest representation to good nature. Now, this is also interesting because light has characteristics that are exceedingly unique. One of those characteristics is the standard universal constant for our universe. Light is the fastest thing that can move. Nothing can exceed the speed of light. And light is particularly unique because of the way that a photon of light would perceive time. With light on that photon, you would be able to perceive all time at one time or any time at any moment in time of your choosing. You can witness the future, you can witness the past. You can expand to the present, or you can move through it very quickly. Light is the reason that Yahweh was able to offer prophecies and no one else can, and he gets them all right, because he's not predicting the future, but as an energy-based, a light-based being, he is able to witness our future in our past and report it to us. So at any time, he can see where we're going and where our choices lead, and then report back to us what will transpire. So when it does, we can trust his witness. This, they say he's not predicting anything. He's reporting future history. So he's always right. Now, there's another aspect of life I think is interesting. The Hebrew language, as we've spoken about how it is the language of God, is like light in the sense that it is a timeless language. In Hebrew, there is no past, present, or future tense like there are in so many languages. In Hebrew, verbs simply exist in time. The only reference to time within the Hebrew verbs, the perfect and imperfect conjugation, where in the perfect it is a completed action, but that completed action, which means a finite period of time that that action takes place, can be in the future, the past, or the present. And with the imperfect, that action verb is continuous throughout time. So the Hebrew language presents the nature of God as light by its grammar. Now, the other thing that is interesting about light is that light's energy. One of the things that Einstein demonstrated with his equation, energy equals the speed of light squared, or at times the mass of the object, is that mass and energy, therefore, with equal sign, are the same thing, just different amounts of the same thing. By the speed of light squared to reach the same amount of energy. Therefore, mass is simply a diminished form of energy. Now, we are material beings in our present state. Yahweh is a spiritual, light-based being. And what that means is that as God transforms us to become more like Him, we are dimensions that exist in the seventh dimension with Him and being expanded, being powered, if you will, by the speed of light squared as we become an energy being. But the beauty of it is that the universe that God created, we can diminish an aspect of ourselves to enjoy things like screaming, fly, speaking, eating, and all the kinds of things we do in the material world. So we can always take an aspect of our energy and diminish it, such that a part of us can be engaged in a material world. Light, of course, is eternal. It has no beginning, no end. It just simply is. That is the nature of eternal life with Yahweh. So the Malach of Yahweh appeared to him by means of a flaming fire, a labash, a spear of burning, a sharpened tip of a point, lahab, a flaming blade of a sword of fire in the midst of the rock. He looked and beheld that a rocky summit was ablaze, burning with fire, but the crag was not consumed. If you want to believe that this was a prickly plant, then I think you're going to miss the majesty of the message. You'll also miss the fact that if you were to use Google Maps and their um, landscape view, Google Earth view, what you would find is that this mountain is identifiable. It's on the opposite shore of Nuweiba beachhead across the Gulf of Aqaba, where the children of Israel would have crossed. And you'll see that the top of this mountain is scorched. So this is a high and elevated place where God's light was shown to Moshe. Like many who have searched maps of the land of Midian, which is in northwestern Arabia, and have examined the pictures taken in the region, I have seen, and you can examine the rocky heights of Mount Horeb. Since this is the mountain of God, and Yahweh is the rock of our salvation, I would opt for somewhere in rocky crag over thorny bush. Moreover, the spectacle was magnificent, making a crag more reasonable than a shrub. Moshe said, I want to go and change direction and to witness this phenomenally massive site, which is so enormous, extensive, and intense. That's what no one for rock crag, right? Yeah. But how and why there is nothing to burn on the high shimmering rocky crag? So Moshe has seen this. It's an amazing sight. The summit of Mount Cherub is ablaze. And he is looking at this and saying, how is this? Is it possible? This is magnificent. It's massive. It's intense. And it's miraculous because God's presence here, and he didn't know he was God at that moment, is illuminating, but there's no apparent source of the illumination. Yahweh saw that indeed Moshe had changed direction to draw near. God called out to him, inviting him to meet with him from the midst of the Rocky Heights. Now, once again, for another point, Rocky Heights over burning bush, God didn't call him to jump into the bush with him, but it does make sense as the Rocky Heights. And sure, means to change direction. So in this case, Yahweh wasn't calling him because Moshe was running away. Moshe even said, "This is magnificent. I want to expect. I was going this direction with my sheep, but now I want to go that direction because I want to see what's going on here. This is something that no one has ever been told before." When Yahweh saw that, he had noticed. It is when Yahweh called out to him, asking to meet with him. The word here, the verb, is kara. It is a magnificent term. Kara means to call out, to meet, to greet, welcome, to read, cite. To kara is to invite and to summon. Kara is particularly important because it is God that is kara, if you will, us. He's the one that is encouraging us to kara with him, to meet with him. He is the one inviting us into his presence, just as here. Now, the next place we witness in terms of the Torah and the most magnificent presentation of it is because Yahweh uses the title Mikra and in the plural Mikre to describe his 7 annual invitations to be welcomed into his presence, greeted by him, and to meet with him. Mikra is a combination of two words. The primary word, the actual root of Mikra, is kara. And to that, there is the Hebrew interrogative, me, which means to ponder the implications of something. So it's Mikra, it's to ponder the implications of the very thing Yahweh was speaking to Moshe about. Come here. I'm calling you out by name. I'm welcoming you into my presence. I take every opportunity. He said, Moshe, Moshe. Now, that should send a shiver up the spine of any religious Jew, any overt Christian. I believe Allah is God, you have to but for any sense. So we'll just dispense with that. He said, Moshe, Moshe. He didn't say uh, Vladimir Putin. He didn't say George Washington. He didn't say Benjamin Netanyahu. Didn't say Winston Churchill. He said Moshe. Moshe was one of his children. He knew him by name. If Yahowah, whose name has already appeared in this text, knew Moshe by name and used his name, don't you think it would be respectful for us to return the favor and acknowledge Yahowah by name? And so he responded and said, look, Hannah, here I am. Behold, I'm right here. As I've shared, Kara is the operative word of Mikra, and in the plural Mikra, invitations to be called out and meet, and it is the first word that Yahweh spoke to Moshe. Kara would define Moshe's mission and their relationship, which was to draw children of Yisrael away from human, political, and religious, economic, and military oppression and to the free covenant family in the promised land. And through Korah, he introduced himself to Moshe, and it's through the Mikra that he does the same thing for all of us, inviting us out of the corrupt world of man into his perfect Shamayim, like him, to be with him, to be adopted and perfected and empowered and enriched and made immortal, inheriting all he has to offer. This is the story. Moshe was slow of speech, he would confess, but he was not deaf. So there was no reason for Yahweh to repeat his name unless, as I suspect, it was to draw attention to the mission that he was about to undertake, which was to draw the children of Israel out of Mitzrayim, because it means out. The very fact that in any quality relationship, it begins by stating the person's name. You cannot enter a relationship with Yahweh unless you know his name. God can manifest himself in any form he chooses, but light which is eternal and enlightening and empowering is his favorite. However, we mortals can only come so close to this much energy without the source of life becoming too intense. We don't exist without the sun. You get close to it, and you'll be vaporized. So for us in our present state, we have to be careful. This is one of the reasons that as part of the covenant family, Yahweh empowers and enriches us, making us much greater, making us stuck in three dimensions, being a seven-dimensional construct, so that we can endure in his immediate proximity. Moshe wasn't in that place at this time. I say here that there are different ways to translate this particular passage, this next one, because the Hebrew letters Aleph, Lamed, uh, can convey El, God, power, El, toward, to, or Al, nothing or nothing. So Aleph, Lamed gives us a number of choices with regard to how we will render what follows. All of it is relevant, but there is always a way which is better than the others. So it is either, and he said, do not come near for this place, or do not come near this place. Then God said, approach and draw near this place. So he wanted to be, and he said, do not come near after he's just invited him to do that very thing. Or do you want it to read, then God, the Almighty said, approach and draw near to this place. It's pretty. The first rendition, while consistent with almost all English translation, does not work in this context because the speaker was Moshe, and this is clearly God speaking to him. Therefore, El reveals the change of voice from man to God. Therefore, in his last statement, Waqara Elhu Elohim, God called out to him, inviting him to meet with him. The Almighty was summoning Moshe into his presence and welcoming him. Karab not only means to approach and draw near, it is something Yahweh asks, as I have mentioned, during this celebration 7 times a year. Additionally, Om speaks of being very close. Not only would it have been inconsistent with Yahweh and his purpose to send Moshe away, since his intent was to spend eternity with him, Moshe would spend 40 days and 40 nights with Yahweh on Mount Horeb on his return to this place. God was there to introduce himself and to meet with Moshe. They were about to become inseparable. Now, this is also an interesting insight into Yahweh's nature. God could have gone to Mitzrayim, Egypt, and to its leader, Pharaoh, and could have said, I'm taking the children of Israel. Didn't even have to talk to him. He could have teleported them out. He could have turned Egypt into glass. He could have done anything that he wanted to. He could have instantly just killed all of the Egyptians. And so those people could walk out. He's God. And he went back into Egypt, free his people with an 80-year-old shepherd. Wow. Do you know? Why would he do such a thing? Why did he construct the ark with Noah as opposed to whisking the animals out of the region that was flooded? Why did he unite Yisrael with Dod? Why did he fulfill the first Moed Mikre, Pesach, Matzah, and Bekurim with the Messiah, his son, Dod, our former and future king? Why does God reveal prophecies through people? Why am I employed here? Why did God ask me to do this for you? Why not just boom his voice down and say, hey, stupid, my name is Yahowah. Why have you erased my name? Why have you forgotten me? What is it about my Torah instructions that you don't like? What is it about the means that I've provided for you to be part of my family, to inherit all that I have to offer in this covenant, and then to receive those benefits by attending my annual mikra that you don't seem to understand? Why are you being religious when I asked you not to do that? Why aren't you willing to engage in the relationship? He's capable of speaking directly to people. Why doesn't he? And you're going to understand something that's far more important than God's name in this story. And that is that God created the universe and he conceived life and then he nurtured relationships beginning with Adam and Shawah, specifically because he wanted to enjoy everything that he had conceived. He wanted to enjoy the role of being a parent with children, lifting them up, sharing his universe, his knowledge, and his power and his riches with his family, with his children. So if that is the objective, and it is, then everything should be done through people. And this is precisely what's transpiring here. And in this case, with Moshe, Yahweh picked the best person on the planet for this job. In fact, he picked the only person on the planet that could have done this job. He was in Arabia with a broken down 80-year-old on the land because he was wanted to his own people had rejected him because he was the only person alive who could do this job. And when you understand what it was that was unique about Moshe and why he was the lone person that Yahweh could work with to get this done in a manner that was consistent with Yahweh's nature. Oh, the riches of his testimony. In this case, the thing that made Moshe unlike anybody else on the planet is that Moshe had been there. He walked away from it. Moshe knew the religiosity of Egypt. He knew that the Pharaoh claimed to be a god. He knew all of their stupid gods of the sun and the moon and the stars and alligators and crickets and crocodiles and crazy things. Falcons, you name it, scarabs, hippopotamus, snakes. They had it all. He knew it, and he knew it was stupid. And he knew that Pharaoh was no more a god than a man on the moon. He also knew that the caste system deployed, which was ubiquitous in all Indian civilizations, where the only people that have free will are, and he chooses to give it to members of his direct family, and then to a much, much lesser degree, those who enforce his authority, religious priests and military officials. Nobody else has any more uh, upward mobility. The caste system dominated the world until quite recently. He knew it was wrong. He knew slavery was wrong. And he knew abusing people was wrong. So he knew that the politics, religion, military, and economics of Mitzrayim was rotten to the core, and he sought to defend the children of Israel from the masters. He killing the process. Didn't find a single thing wrong with that. If you intervene, well, we just had an episode here in the United States, Daniel Penn. He inadvertently killed a man who was doing something horrible, and he was the first found not guilty. Moshe, although in the case of Moshe, man was already beating the Hebrew to death and would have continued. But unfortunately, when the Hebrews, the children of Israel, irascible as they were and have continued to be, rather than thank this man who was part of Pharaoh's household for standing up for them, for protecting them, they mocked him. He said, "Who are you to do this for us?" Threatened to reveal the deed himself. And so Moshe left, he walked away from the most powerful, most pervasively integrated religiously and politically on earth. There's no distinction between their economics, their politics. He turned away from them. He left them. He disassociated from them. He knew all about them and he despised them. That's why he was out shepherding sheep around the forest. That made him the right. At this point, Yahweh did not need to explain to him what's wrong with religion, why he hates religion, why he hates human politics, why he despises the caste system economically. Yahweh, all he had to do is share with Moshe what was right, and not bother to tell him what was wrong. Moshe already did. He made this 80 years. So now we've reached the 40-minute mark on our program, and I'm going to try as part of our progressive shows on the Yahowah blog to keep these programs under an hour. And we have barely scratched the surface on this presentation of Yahweh's name. I think it is better that we take an in-depth approach, that we review things in context, that we learn from the surrounding words that our God shared with us, so that we come to something that's far more valuable than knowing Yahweh's name is Yahweh, and that there's no dispute about that, that it is a fact and we can be it, and how I've done so. More valuable to you if I take the time to share with you the text to which it was revealed, all the insights that can be gleaned from this, so that you understand it. Because once you understand it, you own it. It makes sense to you. Incorporate it into your life. So we'll pick up at this point in episode 2 of the Yahowah blog on Yahweh's name. I'm your host, Craig Wynn.